welcome everyone back to the podcast. We do have Nancy Rodriguez, who is a teacher, and she could explain a little more of her background and what she's currently doing right now and what she's teaching in and just a subject as well. So I'll pass it over to you, Nancy.
Okay. Thanks for having me. So currently right now I am a teacher and I teach preschool, which is very challenging, especially during pandemic times. I have been in the field for, I want to say like 12 years, just working with children, different ages, but it's definitely very challenging these past couple of years since the whole pandemic started.
Yeah, and definitely when you're mentioning about the pandemic starting and just how overworked are you guys currently with, I mean, is there anything being supplied to you or enough people being hired or what's the situation going on?
No, so I mean, we are definitely overworked. Unfortunately, we are understaffed. So in my classroom, there's supposed to be 3 of us because we are preschool age and we have a classroom up to 20. So there's supposed to be 3 teachers, but I've only had, well, like myself, I'm the main teacher, and then I have an assistant, and I'm supposed to have another co-teacher. So we can share the load of paperwork and everything else, the responsibilities of the classroom, the children. So that's been extremely tough because it's just been me since November, where I've had to take care of, all the paperwork, all the conferences, talking to all the parents, working with challenging behaviors. And we do, sometimes get substitutes, but even that's a challenge in itself because they're not consistent. They only last for so long. Some of them quit because they're overwhelmed as well. So it's just not very consistent. And it makes it hard for the children too, because it's always a new person, a new person, a new person.
Yeah, and even speaking about that, what do you feel like adjustments you had to make during this time, not having a full capacity of 3 teachers to kind of take care of about 20 kids?
Definitely time management is key. Like, you just have to figure out how to balance it because the work has to get done somehow, some way. So I definitely have to just make the most out of any opportunity to just really try my best. I've had to stay overtime. I've had to come in earlier,
Wow.
things like that. So making sure that I'm getting work done during nap time while the children are napping, if they're all napping. If not, then that's another challenge because I don't have the time.
Yeah.
So just any type, and thank God I do have at least my assistant that helps me a lot. So she's definitely been a huge help, and she's very open when I tell her specific things like, hey, can you please help me with XYZ? Like, we
Yeah.
really need this right now, or I have a deadline coming up, like I'm going to need to step out of the classroom, during this time or something. So I definitely appreciate her because if she didn't work well with me, then that would be a whole nother challenge as well.
Yeah. And what do you feel like is something that the school can do to kind of better equip you guys, or what do you have you heard so far them trying to assist you guys?
Well, I mean, they've tried different things. Obviously, hiring, like they're not really in control of that because either people are not applying or they apply, they get hired, and then they decide not to follow through with the job.
Wow.
Um, so, or it's just different things like they don't like the location because we're all over Orange County. So they can get sent out to different schools and they might think it's too far of a drive. And I don't blame them with gas prices now, it's like, ooh, do I really want to drive that far? So there's different things like that. They have tried bringing maybe teachers from another school. If their attendance is low for the day, then they can come and assist my classroom. But it's just, again, kind of day
Mm,
by day situation.
mhm.
And then sometimes we're short staffed, we have teachers out sick, or, if somebody has COVID, then we have to kind of figure out and help each other out. So there's so many little things like that. I wish that,
Mm.
I don't know, maybe there could, because we do have some non-student days during the year. I wish they could add more.
Mm,
That way it can help us catch up at least with paperwork,
right.
or even like change our deadlines for things,
Hmm.
because we have different like assessment periods, right? And we have to conduct conferences and things like that. So they extended our first one,
Yeah.
and then they didn't extend the following one. So then we only had like a month and a week to complete this whole assessment. So to me, that didn't make sense. Like, how are you extending 1 week, but then the other one doesn't get extended? Now it's shorter.
Wow.
So
And these
I,
assessments, if you don't mind me asking, like for the people listening, what's usually involved in the assessment? How long does it take for you?
so our assessments, because it is
Mm,
different, the preschool that I'm at, we have to see where the children are developmentally in so many different areas, and we have
mhm,
to make observations based on these areas to then assess where they're at, and then create goals and address those with the parents and work together with them. So there's about, per child, there's more than 100 that we need to complete. So
wow.
if you multiply that by 20, that's a lot,
Oh
right?
my goodness.
Especially if
Yeah.
there's only two of us doing the work instead of three of us.
It's crazy.
So yeah, it's not. So if I had to do all of that, and that's just assessment, that doesn't include our lesson plans and other things that we have to do, every single week,
Yeah.
then it's a lot of work. So,
Yeah, and I was gonna say too. I mean, I'm. This is me just assuming and listening to what you're saying. Is I have a feeling that you're probably also working at home too. Like it doesn't just stay where you're currently working at the school. I'm sure you're gonna take some time off your own personal life to catch up on some things, or like you said, you're gonna have to do some lessons that aren't really accountable for, because obviously your teaching time is for teaching, not really to create what you would want for the kids. So how do you kind of like manage that? The fact that you have to bring that possibly, I don't know, from
mhm.
work to home.
Well, I used to do that a lot,
Oh,
but I, just for like my own mental health and sanity, I don't do that anymore. So that's a boundary that I've created. However, I can't help but, still think about it at home, like maybe I should do this, but maybe I should do this, activity. So there's a lot in my mind.
mhm.
Um, or if I have certain supplies at home, like, okay, let me bring this in, so I try to at least just think about it. That way I can go into, my work hours and then, okay, I'm going to do XYZ thing that I already thought about.
Yeah.
So that's been helpful just for me, because before I used to bring work home all the time. So then not only am I stressed out at
Yeah.
work, but also at home.
Yeah, just hearing what you're kind of sharing, like the tips for someone that's up and coming, wanting to be, like, say, a teacher, what would you say to them to be prepared for once, like, their first day in or first month in?
I think we all have like expectations and goals and all these things, especially as a new teacher. Like you want everything to work out perfectly, but that is definitely not going to be the case. Like you have to be very flexible and, kind of go with the flow, because even if you have the perfect day and the perfect lesson plan and everything, things always don't go that way. Or I'm not going to say always, like you have those days where you're like, thank you, like today worked out how I wanted it to. But when you work with children, like they're very unpredictable. And then there's other, external factors that happen as well. So I would say just, of course, have a plan of what you want to do, but also know that it might not go that way, and that's okay. I think I used to feel really bad or like guilty of like, oh, I want to do more, I want to do more. But you also have to take care of yourself, because if you get burnt out,
Mm,
then you're
yeah.
not going to want to go to work, or eventually that affects your mood, and then the way that you really work with these children, like it will show. And if it doesn't show with the children, it'll show with your coworkers or your, administrators. So I would definitely say just kind of do the best that you can. And I have to still tell myself that because
Yeah.
I'm like, "No, I want to excel at everything
Mm.
that I do, but just, okay, I'm doing the best that I can. And let me just take it one day at a time. Today was super stressful. I didn't get to, this, and this. It didn't go according to plan, but that's okay. We're going to try again tomorrow."
Yeah, and definitely just even listening to that, for the time that you already put in, have you considered even trying like a different grade, or has that come to mind to maybe transition from preschool to something else first? Yeah, and something else.
Yes, so I've actually done different ages before. So then I wanted to try out
Mm.
preschool, and I think I've done my time with preschool. I have definitely thought about another grade, but to be honest, like, it's really rough on us right now that
Yeah.
I think I've thought about, like, okay, let me use my skills, and I think it's time to even move into a different type of career, maybe for the next couple of years or something like that. I think it's equivalent to,
Yeah.
how a lot of nurses feel right now. They're just so overworked and overwhelmed. I think a lot of times people forget that about teachers. So,
Mhm.
I mean, obviously we do different type of work, but it's the same feeling. I talk to my friends that are nurses and I'm like, I feel the same way. I feel the same way. And we also deal, with parents that are stressed out, with children that are stressed out and affected, with the circumstances right now. And everybody else, we all have personal lives too, and we have different things going on. So there's so many stressors, and the children adjusting being back in school, and, even little things like them wearing the mask, like that really affects some of them too.
Wow.
So, and it changes their behavior. So there's so many little things. And I think being, in this field, I'm just like, wow, like I need to take care of myself too because I have been very stressed out.
Yeah.
And even, when I try to speak up and advocate for myself, like either one, they just tell me like, well, this is the situation right now. Like there's really nothing you could do about it or we can do about it. Or two, it's like, well, I just have to do what is best for me. So obviously I love teaching. I love,
Mm.
my students, but I have to also consider what do I need in this moment. So, and that's a really hard decision because
Wow.
I can
Yeah.
feel guilty. So, yeah, I just try to tell myself like, just make it to spring break, just make it to summer. So I tell myself that I'm like, okay, I have 2 non-student days this month. Like, okay, just, take it a bit at a time.
It's funny you're mentioning just a spring break. It's funny because I always see you posting about vacation or just already having
Yeah.
it, so I just find it humorous. But yeah, I was just thinking too. It's like you're right about the nursing. Like they're passionate about it, but it seems like because the environment kind of sucks it out of them, kind of like you enjoy teaching, like you said, but the environment is just not making it healthy for you enough, and you would need that break. And you're mentioning that you might need to transition to a different career. What would that look like, or have you thought about that?
I have actually done it before. So
Mm.
before becoming a preschool teacher, I worked still with children, but I worked at a children's hospital.
Mm.
And it was for the same reason. I had been teaching for so many years, and I said I needed a break. It was
Uh,
just too much. And so I took a break. I believe it was like 3 years, and then I came back because, my heart still longs to work hands-on with children.
yeah,
So I thought, let me try preschool. I haven't done preschool before.
yeah.
So now I'm like, okay, I think it might be time to go back to, the hospital or somewhere else that's and more, administrative, still with children, but yeah, something, different. I was even talking with my coworker today, and she's like, sometimes we can get stuck because we think, well, I've been teaching for so many years, like, what else can I do? And then she was saying, but like we deal with problem solving all the time. Like we deal with customer service, which is talking to our parents,
Yeah.
obviously administrative skills, like we create all these things, online or documents and things like that. And we're
Yeah.
obviously like very creative and flexible. So we have a lot of skills that sometimes we don't realize because we've just known teaching. And that's the job that a lot of us have done for so many years.
And speaking on that, it's great that you said that because people just think of you as just teaching teachers, but it's like you do administrative work. I think the one part you mentioned about the kids and kind of seeing where they're at, like wearing the mask, there's also this empathetic side. You have to be touching with the kids to see how can you help them. They're all different in learning. And so it's a whole dynamic besides just saying, look, this is what we're gonna learn today, or this is what you're gonna instruct. But there's the administrative side. I'm sure you have to be organized, your deadlines. So there's that type of stress. You also want to see your kids doing well. So it's not like compensated enough. And it's almost like I don't know, maybe society as a whole, but it's not teachers aren't valued enough now because it's like you guys are doing too much. It's like administrative should be for administrative. If they have to ask for something, cool, hire someone for that, but don't make you like don't get me wrong, it could be Swiss Army knife, have multiple things to yourself,
Mhm.
but don't burn them out. That's why people are quitting, like you're saying, or just leaving it like, no, I'm done, or I'm gonna go do something else. But for people that are listening, it's like it's true what you're saying. It's like it's you're just not teachers, and I think there needs to be more respect. And even the people that are setting budgets for the education system, they got to see more value to the teachers and actually help out versus just like, oh, you guys got everything. It seems that's what it seems like. They always throw everything on teachers. It's insane to me.
Yeah. And that's a big point actually right there because we obviously don't make a lot of money,
Mhm.
but also the funding is not what we need it to be. I have bought lots of things, for my classroom. Um, and so it's like, well, that's coming out of my pocket as well. We need
Mhm.
supplies, we need new books, we need all these things, but
Yeah.
I think just everybody is so overwhelmed that sometimes it's like, well, getting school supplies is kind of our last priority right now. We have so many other things going on.
It's
So,
crazy.
yeah, and I mean, that's nothing new, like we've
Yeah.
done that for many years because at the end of the day, we do have those hearts. So it's like, I'm going to get what I need, for my classroom and for it to function how I need it to.
Yeah. And just even thinking if you were allowed to, like, say, raise your own income or your salary, what would you say is something feasible for you to stick around or for majority of teachers? Especially right now when gas is almost touching 550, is about to hit six. It's kind
Oh
of
my God.
insane. But yeah, like one more thing I was gonna say too. It's like the salaries you guys have. Maybe it was cool like back in 2005 or something, but now in 2022 they're tripping. It has to be at least double or even triple if I can go there. But I think there's that budget, that salary back then for teachers belongs back in 2005 or something, but not now, not anymore.
Yeah. Definitely, I mean, yes, we definitely need a pay increase, I think. But overall, like,
Yeah.
even if we get paid more, it's just how the structure of everything is, right?
Mhm.
Because I have left a job prior that paid me more, but it was just really affecting me that I took a big pay cut because I
Wow.
just didn't want to. And that was a hard step to take
Mm,
because you think about, okay, I'm going to be making this much less. But again, for my sanity, I just needed to leave. So I think, yes, of course, like raising our salary would be great and very helpful, but also just like the environment just needs to be healthier.
mm. And just as we're kind of like closing out the podcast, anything you would want to share with people to show more appreciation or love to teachers or maybe encourage them in any way?
I would say if you're a parent and you have a child, that's in school, like just be patient with your teacher, like show gratitude because we do a lot. We don't just teach, but we're also, there for your children. I actually have several of my students that accidentally call me mom all the time
Oh,
because of how much time I spend with them, and I genuinely care for them and we are concerned. And I think that that's sometimes like a hard thing for parents to accept of, hey, I noticed your child XYZ.
mhm,
And, we do bring up those concerns because we want to see your child succeed, right? Of course, I
mhm.
can't speak for everybody because
Right.
some teachers are just like overworked, burnt out, and they're over it and they're like, your child, blah, 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 blah. not because they really care, but because they're just tired of the behaviors. But a lot of us do care. So I think just like really appreciate, and if you're friends with, or family members with a teacher, like just check on us because sometimes we're just like, oh, I
Yeah.
just need to vent sometimes, like there's just so much, or if you're even another teacher, share your ideas with another teacher because it can really be helpful. Like, hey, I've been doing XYZ thing, or you know what, like before I go to work, like this helps me out if I do certain things. Like, I pray individually by like my troublemakers. I'm like, God, please be with so and so and so and so and so so. Help them to listen to me and to behave better, or just I have to get myself ready before I even go to work to just be like, like please, like let this be an easier day. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things, little things like I
Yeah.
think, your words mean a lot. And of course, especially, we do have Teachers Appreciation Weekday. I don't even know what it is. But the smallest thing, you don't have to give us a big thing. Sometimes even when the kids make cards, like I'm like, oh, that's so
Aw.
cute, like you appreciate me. So definitely take advantage of that time.
And thank you, Nancy, so much for even you taking your time to tell everyone and even doing this podcast because we definitely need to hear it. Even myself, not being from teaching, I know that it's just a lot of work for you guys right now, and you guys are killing it, but at the same time trying to take care of your own mental health and spiritually and even physically. But definitely for people listening, even parents, just take the time to encourage teachers like Nancy, and even for the listeners, just go out and show love and support. And thank you so much for being on the podcast, Nancy. I can't wait to see what your transition is, your next decision on if you decide to stick around with preschool or, like you said, transition into maybe healthcare. But I just want to say thank you so much for making time for this podcast.
No, thank you for having me.